so you two are an item. Well, congratulations, you hypocrites.
Just be honest, dude. You want what they have. So, the new episode of Helluva Boss is out, and Asmodeus x Fizzarolli is officially couple goals. M&M's, move out of the way. Stolas, you're still cool, but Fizzy is genuinely you, but better. From the same power imbalance, but with actual communication skills, and if you doubt, just remember, we watched a 7 Deadly Sin call out a royal's relationship with an imp, and this time around, the royal didn't back down. Yeah, don't know if y'all caught that, but these massive hypocrites basically reenacted Ozzy's, except this time they got the good ending. And Blitzo may be happy for them, but you gotta wonder if seeing these two together might piss him off just a wee bit. Or wonder if seeing these two together will finally spur Stolas to make his big proposal. Lots of things could happen, lots of potential for change, and I kinda doubt these idiots will learn anything from it. But let's break down the new best couple in hell and how they reflect Stolas and create a roadmap for their lessers to follow, while also chewing on the ramifications of Fizz and Ozzy dating and how that will affect the rest of hell.
Oh, I think you're messy, but I'm messy too.
So basically, Fizz and Ozzy lucked out when they met each other. No, truly. There's a lot of societal baggage for imps dating above their social class. There's a built-in inferiority complex getting negged even by their own. Truly, Fizz dating Ozzy and doing so well emotionally was a stars align type situation. And to explain how we got there, Fizz was a former child star who worked at a circus who, thanks to his incredible talent, was able to win the grand prize of being the least abused kid there. I say least abused because you can tell that even though he's grown, Fizz still has got a lot of issues from those days. Like, for example, Fizz is paranoid about not being good enough, that he has to be perfect to win the admiration and applause of those he performs for, especially those he considers to be above him like Mammon and even Ozzy. This behavior is in part basic imposter syndrome that every creator gets from time to time, but for Fizz, it feels way more purposeful. Probably a built-in trait from living under the constant pressure of being the star attraction of the circus. He was the main draw for this thing, the person people paid the most money to go see, and the person whose success could make or break a night for them. Growing up in that kind of environment would give anyone a complex about having to bring their A game every single time, as they just felt that quiet pressure of not wanting to let down those around them. Even if Blitz's dad Cash wasn't as shitty to him as he was to his own son, that level of pressure is gonna give anybody an anxiety disorder, not to mention a bad need for validation from people like Mammon, which must have been hard, especially after the accident.
You just left me. I lost so much because of you.
So yeah, Fizz's life blew up right in his face, but he was eventually able to bounce back thanks to his talent, charisma, and advanced cybernetics. Winning Mammon's clown pageant, becoming the mascot for the King of Greed, Oogie Boogie Down Under over here then took all of his insecurities, this need to perform at his best, his craving for a father figure, and the belief that he is only as good as his next performance to dig his claws into Fizz's psyche, convincing the young performer to let Mammon do anything and everything he wanted with his image. From forcing him to perform wherever and whenever, selling his image on everything, all while Fizz never really got fully comfortable with his fandom and stalker. As let's be honest, if you were a child star, this level of invasive fandom is something you will never be okay with. Fizz was always a great performer, he was always super likable, but the people who actually knew him were far and few between, with the fans who assumed they knew him getting up in his face and making him incredibly uncomfortable, as nobody is ready to handle this. This is probably why Fizz was so okay with letting Blitz back into his life. As baggage aside, Blitz knows him and was always straight with him without devolving into some hero worship. But Fizz never loved having all these people obsess over him. They had this creepy parasocial obsession. All that was made worse by Mammon, who commodified Fizz's entire being.
Fizzy, skinny Fizzy, so many Fizzies! And if you wanna fuck him, you can!
Even going so far as to create robot replicas that would serve the sick freaks who already assumed that they knew him. So now they had a copy that they could sleep with, forcing Fizz into an even more invasive position as his fans, at least the worst ones, now really think that they know him personally and carnally. With Fizz just having to rationalize away his own discomfort as he knows he really doesn't have much of a choice in this situation. However, for all the crazy Mammon brought into his life, for all the life-ruining stress his worst fans gave him, at least he got to meet Ozzy. Now, all that backstory is what I mean when I say Fizz and Ozzy lucked out to meet each other. As for all the trauma that has come Fizz's way, it's actually set him up to be in a pretty emotionally open relationship with a royal that some other people could only dream of. As for starters, what makes them so good together? Chemistry. Fizz is a chaotic stretch gremlin, while Ozzy is the extremely horny but genuine king of lust. Ozzy's keeping Fizz grounded and pointing out just the obvious for someone who knows but doesn't want to admit it. While still, it's all built around attraction and a desperate, all-consuming need to fill the void in their lives that they just don't want to admit to. Fizzy is able to sidestep most of the trauma baggage that Stolas has by the fact that life will just let them. Blitz is keeping his guard up at all times, with him not dropping his guard around Stolas even though he secretly appreciates him. Blitz only lets himself care when he thinks Stolas won't notice, like in his sleep. Meanwhile for Fizz, his condition as a cyborg and Ozzy's as a mechanical engineer really meant that they could never put up the same rock-hard emotional walls that they do. Fizz is hurt. That explosion scarred him for the rest of his life, and while he can try and keep himself together, there's only so much he can do. Somebody has to be there to help him fix his parts when they get busted, and that requires a certain level of trust and care that he has to give to someone else. Fizz, for all his attempts to pretend that he's okay, is physically required to let someone else in, to let them see his scars, and that's necessary for him to become better, with that person being, of course, Ozzy. This situation is part of what allows them to leapfrog over all of Stolas' nonsense. As Fizz can't just push everyone away, he can't pretend everything is okay all the time. So when he does finally have to relent, Ozzy gets a chance to see him in all of his issues, but still chooses to love him anyway, allowing for the actual emotional intimacy that Stolas craves, but can never give for a variety of reasons. I'm sure Ozzy and Fizz first met when Mammon ordered the sex bots, with the two of them naturally hitting it off, only for maybe a small repair later to make them realize that this could be something more. Fizzy was able to realize that this was more than just lust, and see just how vulnerable one of their members could be, with them being able to heal when the other said that it was okay and accepted them. Ozzy, for his part, really truly, and I'm serious, is just Stolas, but better. Because, look at him. But more than that, more than just not being a British twig, Asmodeus has none of the issues that Stolas has. Though you can absolutely understand why, as Ozzy has apparently been around since the beginning of Hell. He is one of the 8 most powerful people in it. While there's certain rules and customs that he has to pretend to follow, he has pretty much had complete control over his own life. He can sleep with who he wants, he can do what he wants, and only like 7 people can say shit to his face and even pretend that they're gonna come out of it alive. In contrast, Stolas has pretty much been screwed since he popped out of his egg. From a posh restrictive upbringing where smiling was considered unbecoming, Stolas was led to be restricted at pretty much every corner. Meanwhile Ozzy, as the sin of lust, was praised and encouraged to be uninhibited. Stolas pretty much got to be a kid, then his family gave him a job, a wife who strangled her pets, and was expected to just smile and wave through the rest of his existence, as he was just there to fill a role, with nobody ever caring about him as a person, which when you put it like that, Stolas does have a lot more in common with Fizz than Ozzy, as they were both fucked by life. Blitz and Stolas both have massive, personality-defining issues that have made their whole existence and relationship a struggle. Not to mention a communication nightmare since day one, as they both misread the other's intentions and refuse to clarify it as they are just afraid of ruining what little that they have. While Fizz is also messy and his life has been far from a walk in a park, Ozzy stands out as having his life together, to not have some life-defining tragic backstory that shaped him into the person that he is today. This gives him the luxury of seeing things with a clearer, less biased perspective than Stolas ever could, with Ozzy also having way less social constraints to keep him from acting. Which is why, while cool to see Ozzy do what Stolas couldn't, standing up to a deadly sin, declare his love for Fizz despite the crowd of onlookers, while commendable, it isn't really the same achievement if it had been Stolas who had stood up to Ozzy. Life dealt Ozzy a way better hand, allowing him to act how he wants while being less afraid of consequences. He's more powerful, with basically no one to hold him accountable. Mammon may make threats about how Ozzy is gonna pay for this, but there's no actual rules or punishment that can come down on Ozzy like the Goetias could come down on Stolas. As Stolas, sullying the family name would be unforgivable, and most importantly, Stolas is replaceable. He was raised knowing that, and even played his part in creating a backup in Octavia. In contrast, who the fuck is gonna replace Asmodeus? He's been here since the beginning of Hell, he has no kids. The power vacuum his death or replacement would cause is simply too much of a headache for Lucifer to even consider, especially when it's over Ozzy loving an imp, or just a business deal with Mammon. So while the Big M will be a petty little bitch who will make Fizzy's life difficult, the only real pressing concern that we know about for Ozzy is the potential PR nightmare that this this will cause. But he's fully willing to take that hit, as Fizz is worth it. But he also can't be replaced, so it is only a reputation thing. So while cool, it's much easier for Ozzy to do this than what Stolas didn't do. Even if the situation technically had higher stakes and was more public, though that in and of itself does make the situation slightly different, as if Blitz's life was in danger, Stolas probably would have done more. Though if his life was at risk, Blitz probably would have taken it less personally, as Blitz values his life less than his heart. Fizzy can be Stolas but better because the events of their lives have allowed them to. They are able to talk with one another, to be open about what they want without jeopardizing their work. Ozzy's able to tell Fizz to let go of this toxic job and the boss that is running him ragged. I love watching this big uber protect and comfort Fizz, who after all the struggles he's gone through, from pleasing Mammon, feeling like he has to be perfect, having something he's allowed to drop the mask around and to be flawed and still be loved is amazing. Though I do want to highlight the interesting parallel between Fizz and Blitz when it comes to their relationship with work, as Fizz thinks that his job and Mammon are the reason that he has everything that he has, which kind of true but not really. Fizz is able to see just a little bit of luck that allowed him to be at the right place at the right time. Ozzy disagrees, saying that Fizz would have been great regardless of the circumstance that brought them ultimately together. Meanwhile, just like how Fizz ties his own self-worth to his job, Blitz is also using Imp as a crutch to cover his own emotional issues. At the start, he saw it as a replacement for the family and friends that rejected him, only for his attempts to throw himself into work failing just like it did Fizz. As Blitz's parody of a family structure, while appreciating him, will never contort themselves to be what he desperately wants. His desire for independence, stability, and control over his own life are all manifested in Imp. It's everything that he has, and while it may pay the rent, it continues to fail at filling that void in his life, just like how working for Mammon never filled the void in Fizz's. They both clung to it, despite the real answers to their issues being found outside of work. Fizz was able to quit, ripping off his jester outfit in a symbolic gesture of letting the world see his scars and not feeling like he has to be perfect for someone else's approval. But Blitz isn't there yet. Blitz has to trust that his relationship with Stolas isn't tied to his job, that what they have is genuine and real. Maybe even let himself be taken care of after struggling so hard for so long to be his own man, after having spent his entire life either being alone or used. The parallels between these couples is deep and fascinating, but the question still remains, will Blitz and Stolas take any real lessons from watching Fizzy do it better? And the answer is maybe. Like, here's the twisted truth. For as much fun as I had watching Blitz shoot the fan and call the two of them hypocrites, playfully mind you, I don't really see Blitz fully changing course over these two, as while he's spouted his own anti-rich talking points that brought him dangerously close to a certain racist, he already knew about Fizz and Ozzy. He accepted it, he was happy for Fizz about it. So while cool that Blitz got to see his secret fantasy come true, I doubt it will spur any real action, because when you boil it all down, societal expectations aren't the problem Blitz sees in his relationship with Stolas. He is. Blitz is crippled by self-worth issues and regret that have haunted him since he could talk, and have probably only gotten worse since he accidentally killed his mom. So seeing a royal can love an imp isn't the groundbreaking material that some people think it is, because even if it happens to someone else, Blitz still doesn't think it will happen to him or that he even deserves it. And even if it's happening, he always thinks of himself as the problem that will ruin things, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of pushing people away even though he desperately wants to hold them close. Blitz is happy for Fizz, but while a nice gesture, the idea that he will apply this to his own life is gonna be shot down with prejudice. Who this moment might have a bigger impact on is Stolas, as it was Stolas who messed up at Ozzy's, hiding his face when he got called out for the affair. So for him, to see Ozzy on live TV declaring his love for an imp, I'd imagine he's both impressed, extremely happy for them, and a little bit salty. He already gave it his seal of approval, but seeing it happen live might be the thing that pushes Stolas to finally say the quiet part out loud, that he loves Blitz. That whatever they might be later, Blitz changed his life for the better, and he'll never be able to stop repaying him for that. Stolas, as we know, is a romantic. He loves these kind of grand gestures. So seeing Ozzy do it might just give him the courage to do the same, and most importantly, do it quickly, as Fizzy is going to get so much shit from this from the media and all the gossips. So much so that nobody will have time to talk shit about Stolas and Blitz, who are basically doing the exact same thing. Fizzy might just be the distraction Stolas needs to keep the Goetia off his back, at least for a little bit. Having two massive examples of this might just split the community's focus and maybe even normalize it just a wee bit, though there will be death threats, with Stella being most of them. Stolas is gonna get that Asmodean crystal. The next episode is full moon, so I imagine when Blitz shows up for that booty call, he's gonna get a whole ass different situation. We don't know how he'll react to this, as I'm not fully sure Blitz has grown enough to let somebody really love him, but this could be the start of something beautiful. Though while I'll always love my problematic faves, Fizzy is just the better couple.
Who tops?
It's Fizz. Fizz tops. Thank you all for watching. This has been Sarcastic Course. Just want to say I am getting some bigger videos ready for the end of the year, so prep for that. Subscribe if you haven't already to get the update. Click the bell icon because YouTube told me to tell you. Also, let me know what you all thought of Fizz and Ozzy. Are they really better than Stolas right now, or are you still addicted to trauma? As I, for one, know my answer. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Love you all. Peace out.